Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. It is just crazy that, just a few months ago we were talking about teams like TCU holding up a national championship in beach volleyball. Now we shift our focus back into the indoor scene and what, the U.S. Pro Leagues have been doing and what the outdoor league has been doing, which is, being, you know, crazy. So things have gotten a little bit crazy over the past couple months. I'm gonna just tell you right now, things have gotten a little bit crazy over the past couple of months in volleyball, bruh. Again, lots of transfers, lots of people retiring and going into ESPN. Like Florida's old coach. Uh, you know, Deals have been made, things have been signed, I's have been dotted, T's have been crossed. And the big thing coming out from the past couple of weeks really is basically Major League Volleyball is going to be a thing. Is going to be a thing because in reality, this is just a rebrand that they did with the PVF. So the Omaha Supernovas, which again is the team that was going to be running Major League Volleyball in the first place, basically said, we're tired of propping up teams like Vegas, which won't be playing in 2026, and Columbus and San Diego, tired of propping those teams up, kind of want something new, we kind of want something to do here that can, make us happy. And so DeVoe and Danny White, was like, all right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to basically merge the PVF and we're going to remerge. We're going to get back together. We're going to rebrand as Major League Volleyball. That's really what this is. At the end of the day, this is not a merger. This is a rebrand of the PVF. So this is PVF 2.0 here, baby. So similar to how, the AFL 3.0 rebranded into the AF1, this is basically just a rebrand. That's what this is. This is just absolutely insane because Omaha was kind of the cause of all this, and yet they get a new co-owner, general manager too, in the process. And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? John Cook is just like, what do you mean he's in the front? He's doing his thing. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, this is clearly a takeover by the Omaha Supernovas. I mean, yeah, there's going to be an increased salary cap to $1.2 million. Last year players were getting paid in tiers, based on, really probably talent, and hype and aura, which I don't like to say like hype and aura moments, but I just said that. It's like, now, there's a salary cap now, things could maybe be a little bit more even on the playing field in some senses, but I mean, at the same time, it was pretty even the past 2 years. So, there's a little bit of a raise, which ain't too crazy. I don't know how many matches the PVF's gonna play, rather the MLB. I gotta get used to that. Gotta get used to it. It's the MLB. I don't know how many matches they're gonna play. I don't know if it's gonna be 26 again. But what I am excited for, is Dallas. They announced their owner today, as well, the Dallas team, because I want pro volleyball in Big D. SMU last year was exciting to watch, them playing ACC foes and getting, big time victories. This past year was insane, and they are ranked very highly to begin the year. Same with my Texas Longhorns, who, got bounced, last year. But we'll talk about college in a moment. But I just want to get back to it with the whole MLV thing. Now there's a roster increase to 16 players. It's like 14 last year. Now you can sign up to 16. Again, Again, we do have a Dallas team. There were inquiries about Boston. I don't know what, and it seems like Kansas City, the team that was supposed to be in Kansas City, they pull out. That's kind of what happened. There they kind of pull out. From what I gathered, is that they pull out. So, and Vegas just, it's just not viable anymore. Unless somebody else can step up, and take Vegas and take them on their merry way. We'll be stuck at 8 teams yet again for 2026, but we'll get Dallas in the process. I don't think Vegas was ever a volleyball town. Vegas is just not, like that. If you want to go to a Western location that's a volleyball locale, maybe try where Long Beach is at, But there is that Sacramento team that was going to be joining, the presumed MLV is going to be pushed back to 2027. Same thing with DC, as in there's going to be a Washington, D.C. team. I don't think D.C. supports volleyball like that, but, whatever. We probably should have teams, in like, I don't know. We already got the Omaha Supernovas, so what about Wisconsin? What about Minnesota? Actual places where, you can play volleyball and, keep it nice and good. But no, we gotta have a Boston up in here. We gotta have a Boston, mate. Come on now, Boston. Does that scream volleyball to you? Does that scream a volleyball town to you? It doesn't scream a soccer town either. But I'm not gonna get into the NWSL anymore like that. So there's that. League One volleyball. They rebranded. They rebranded the Nebraska team to Madison. They just rebranded them to Madison. The rosters are, getting pretty much set. And again, a lot of gals are still gonna be playing overseas. Some will, inevitably come from college. Some, will inevitably come, from the PVF if the PVF cuts. And I keep saying the PVF like I'm smart. I meant MLV, which is still going to take some time to get used to. It's just going to take some time to get used to. So MLV, if there's some cuts along the way, yeah. And then a lot of these gals, were out, doing VNL, Volleyball Nations League, and other leagues out in Europe, like Turkey, stuff like that, over the past few months. It's been a lot of VNL, to be quite honest with you, which I do not care for international competitions at all like that. So, I've stopped caring for international competitions. So, it is what it is. Man, I don't really want to talk about the AVP League because it's a absolute mess, but, I'm going to move on to that real quick because, we got some things to talk about as far as the AVP League is concerned. At this time, the men's championship rankings right now, Hagen Smith, Logan Weber, they are leading the way. They have 2 matches left. Surprisingly, Trevor Crabb and Phil Dalhausser, old man Dalhausser, 6-2. In second place. Surprisingly. I know. Crazy, right? The Taylors, 6-2, they're done. Banesh and Partain, I will be watching Banesh, Partain, and James Shaw, I will be watching them in Dallas. Sean Cook and Brian Miller, I will be watching them, in Dallas. And I mean Frisco, to be quite honest with you. Saturday night I will be in Frisco, so we will be seeing these final couple matchups from the AVP League. From the men's side again, the AVP made their broadcast debut on CBS. Like about 3 weeks ago. It was pretty interesting. I think they went overtime though. It went overtime because one match that was airing, the women's match, I think, went like an hour and some change, which, I'm definitely welcome with that. I'm definitely fine with that. A matchup going well over an hour because, 15 points really, the league is trying to, say, oh, well, this is for the intensity factor and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's just point shaving to point shave and not, give us a true game. And again, the top 6 teams, are going to go to, Chicago for the league championship, which is going to be Sunday, August the 31st, which will have a mega blockbuster slate, which I'm going to talk about in a moment again with the college stuff. And then the women's side, Rasher and Nuss are running away with it. They're 7-1, but Julia Donlin and Lexi Denneberg, they could be, right behind them. They're 5-1, but Rasher and Nuss are 7-1. They're done. So it will be, and I'm only going to the Saturday night, competition, not going on Friday night. Not doing that on Friday. I want to do this on Saturday. I want to get it, the right way. I want to do it the right way. So Donlin Denneberg, and then Therese Cannon, Megan Kraft, they will be playing in Dallas this weekend. And then Kylie DeBerg, Haley Hayward, or Harvard, will be playing in Dallas as well. So, they'll be out in Big D. And I keep saying Dallas, and it's Frisco. It's Frisco. So, again, top 6 from both the men's and the women's side will advance to the championship finals. Supernovas, are not the only delusional, big volleyball thing. AVP League is still very much delusional. It's a very much delusional idea. Manhattan Beach Open is just kind of just there. It's gonna be, it's literally like less than 2 weeks away, and it's like what? Manhattan Beach Open, what's that? So, the AVP League is, sailing. It's not smooth because, the viewership numbers have been kind of and then, the attendance, like they're booking these smaller arenas to try and justify, attendance. It's like, no. You can't fool me. You can't fool me. So now volleyball in college, baby. We have those preseason polls with the defending champions Penn State at number 2, with Nebraska, who's got a lot coming back. A lot of good ones coming back at number 1. Pitt, number 3. Louisville, the runners-up from this past season, at 4. Texas 5, Stanford 6, Kentucky 7, Wisconsin 8, Texas A&M, which has brought some very intriguing prospects in, at 9. Again, that feisty SMU team from last year is 10. Minnesota, Creighton, Arizona State, Kansas, Purdue, Florida, Missouri, UCLA, BYU, Baylor, USC, Georgia Tech, Utah, Dayton, and TCU round out the top 25. And this season is going to be insane. We have 9 windows on over-the-air television that are confirmed, for the regular season. We got a couple on NBC. You got 6 on Fox. We got 1, which is going to be opening weekend, or rather not opening weekend, but the real big blockbuster party. A big-time matchup between the number 1 Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Kentucky Wildcats. It's going to be, again, they brought, A&M brought back a lot. Texas is still Texas. And the SEC is moving to a tournament this year. So, you know it's going to be a fun time when it comes to the SEC this year. The Big Ten, my God, Nebraska and Penn State face off on Black Friday this year. It's going to be insane. There's going to be a matchup on Black Friday between them. Again, Creighton's hosting a big-time event with them, Wisconsin, Texas, and Kansas. And that's going to be fun. Again, that's all that second Sunday, the second Sunday of the season on the 31st of August. It's going to be a fun one. Penn State, the defending national champions, will be on Big Fox, on over-the-air Fox. Yes, Big Fox itself, playing Arizona State. And then they get a Labor Day showdown with TCU. It's gonna be one hell of a season for college volleyball. So many good games They're going to be all over the place. Lots of ESPN windows. Again, a big highlight, too, is that showdown at the Net in Fort Worth, on September the 10th. Pitt, Kentucky, Texas, and Louisville. Man. Do I even go to that? Because I might do it. I might even just do that. I might just, be like, yo, let me get on up there. Let me see what we got going on here. Or do I do like a Thanksgiving weekend type thing? That's the other option. Do I do a Thanksgiving week type thing where I go to an SMU game? Because that'd be cool, going to an SMU game, even though it's one of Texas's little brothers, but, SMU has a lot of hype and aura around them. I'm not going to give you guys really any national championship predictions because there is a lot to digest when it comes to, the college season. Well, maybe I will. I think we're going to see, Nebraska go wire to wire. So, that's what I'm thinking. I think this roster is strong enough. I could be completely wrong. At the end of the day, I think Nebraska is strong enough. Penn State's brought back, a lot, but, the number one is the number one for a reason. But, number one doesn't always win, though, So I could be completely wrong, but I'm just going to give you straight off the dome Nebraska. I would say Texas, but that's my bias showing. I think the talent that Nebraska has, and I think Penn State will make it very, very far this year, very, very far. Again, and watch out again, even though I don't like A&M, watch out for them. Watch out for SMU. Those are teams to watch out for because they're that good. Stanford, Louisville, they're all going to be there. Creighton is another one that is going to be, intriguing because of how their schedule works because, a lot of their big matchups, are during the non-conference and how will they fare, before getting into Big East play and everything like that. Do we have any crazy controversies from last season, such as, the whole, Boise State debacle or, or anything like that? I hope not, in the college ranks. I really hope not. There is a lot to follow. There's a lot of players that, I want to name off the top of my head, but I mean, I can't really do that because I haven't looked too crazy into these rosters yet. There's a lot of volleyball to consume for me, and there's just a lot. I can't really get into it all. But Leah Edmonds signed back with Atlanta. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. I will say that much. That is a very good thing. Yes. One of the best from last year in the PVF, And I'm gonna keep, forgetting, to say, oh, this is Major League Volleyball now. I'm probably gonna forget, next time we talk about volleyball on Labor Day. It will be Labor Day when we talk some volleyball again, everybody. So, rest up. There's a lot of volleyball over the next couple of weeks. That is going to be intriguing. That is going to be one, hellacious time. And it's going to be cool, Do you believe in the hype of Nebraska? We'll find out. We'll find out over the course of the season. But I believe in the hype. That team has a lot going forward. So I think Nebraska will take it home. And then, the AVP League championship, I don't even know at this point, to be quite honest with you. Just, I guess, the top two teams, definitely Brasher and Nuss is taking home the AVP League championship. Shoot, they may even take home the Manhattan Beach Open, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. This is long, but it needed to be long. You need it to be long. You need something like this to be long because there's a lot to talk about. And I'm glad, we're on season 2. We're this is the second season of me talking, volleyball from August all the way to May. So, going to be fun. Can't wait. I'll talk to you all again next week. We'll talk some lacrosse. We'll talk some college football. I believe. I'm thinking about it. I may tackle them preseason polls, but I don't know. But at least we'll talk about the end of the PLL season and some NLL stuff that happened, next week. So stay tuned, stick around, and be sure to keep subscribing. There's a lot to go through.